Chapter 1. A Body. In January, they found the girl's body. They found it in Pinecrest. Pinecrest is a small town about 90 miles from Denver in the Rocky Mountains. In the past, it was famous for silver and gold, but now it's a place where people go on vacation. They ski there in the winter and walk in the mountains in the summer. Movie stars have homes there. It's beautiful, and it's quiet when the snow falls. And the snow falls a lot in the winter. Pinecrest isn't usually the kind of place you find a dead body. Denver's the place for that, not Pinecrest. Oh, of course, sometimes there are skiing accidents, like in all ski resorts. I remember that a young man died about 3 years ago. He was skiing too fast and he went into a tree. It's sad, but it happens. But murder, killing someone, well, that's different. So that January morning, my boss, Leo Cohn, chief of the Denver police, called me into his office. "Girl's body in Pinecrest, Flick," said Leo. Leo was thin and worked too much. He never sat down. Now he was standing near his desk. "They found her yesterday." "Oh?" I said. "It looks like someone killed her," he said. I didn't say anything. "Murder," he said, as if I didn't understand. I waited. He didn't look at me. Then he said, "I want you to go to Pinecrest." "Ha," I said. "So that's what you want. But Leo, why me? It's too soon. It was just 2 months ago. I can't." "Flick, you're the best," he said. "And you need to get out of Denver. It's the best thing." "Listen, Leo." I started, but I stopped. Leo looked me in the eyes. "Come on, Flick. Bill Gershon, the chief of police there, is an old friend of mine. He's not happy. If it's murder, it's bad for business. No one wants to ski when there's a killer about." Well, yeah, I thought. As I looked out of Leo's window at the city, a dead body was bad for business. I knew Pinecrest. I used to go skiing there on the weekends. The town made its money from the thousands of visitors who went there every year. The restaurants, cafes, hotels, ski school, all made money from the people who went to beautiful Pinecrest for their vacation. "And the girl?" I asked. "Was she a visitor?" Leo smiled. He could see that I was interested. "Yes," he said. "She was there on a skiing vacation with some friends from college. Someone found her in the swimming pool at the hotel where she was staying." "She died in the swimming pool?" I asked. "Looks like somebody drowned her," Leo said. I looked at him. "She was 23 years old," Leo said softly. "And?" I asked. "You'll get what you need from Gershon," said Leo. I got up to leave. "Oh, and Flick," said Leo. I turned at the door. "I want you to get this one, and I want you to get it fast," he said. "First, because it'll make the Denver Police Department look good, and we need that. And second, because you think it's good for me to get out of the office and back to work," I said. Leo didn't say anything, but it was true. He was helping me in his way. "Okay, Leo," I said. "But remember, it was just November, just 2 months ago. That Scott—" Yeah, I know. But Flick, Scott's dead," said Leo. His voice was kind, but strong. "And you've got to live." He turned away from me and looked out of the window. Leo was finished. I walked to my office to get the things I needed for a few days out of town: my notebook, cell phone, and car keys. I thought about November, thought about Scott, Detective Scott King of the Denver Police. Then I took my gun and put it under my jacket. I went downstairs to the parking lot. Scott and I worked together for 4 years. We were the best the Denver Police Department had. We loved catching killers, robbers, all of Denver's criminals. But we were more than that. We were friends too. Scott was my best friend. Then one stupid, cold day in November, Eddie Lang killed Scott, and I saw my best friend die. Yeah, I thought, Scott's dead and I've got to live. Most days it was difficult. I shook my head and Scott's face went away. I took my keys out of the pocket of my jacket and looked at the most beautiful car in the world, my red 1957 Chevrolet. My Chevy. I smiled. That car always made me smile. Some days it felt like it was the only good thing in my life. I drove home fast to my apartment on Alameda, went in and packed a bag. I changed into my blue suit and looked at myself in the mirror in the bathroom. I looked okay. I looked like I came from the big city. I felt my gun inside my jacket. I was ready. Ready to find a killer. Without Scott. 15 minutes later, I was driving on Interstate 70 to Pinecrest, Colorado. I was trying to forget about Scott, and I was trying to forget about Eddie Lang. Chapter 2. Pinecrest Scott King. Yeah, it was hard to forget. As I drove up into the Rocky Mountains, pictures came into my head. The first time we worked together, his smile, the things he said. "Stop it, Flick," I said to myself. I turned on the car radio. It was an old country song. Then the news came on. "Good morning, listeners," said the voice. "It's 10 o'clock, and here's the news. Police found a young woman's body in a swimming pool at the Mountain Hotel in Pinecrest yesterday. The 23-year-old was a visitor from Texas in the town on a skiing vacation. Police believe it was murder." I turned the radio off. Scott came back to me. I thought about the first time we worked together. "Flick?" said Scott. "That's a funny name." We were in a police car in downtown Denver. "Well, my real name's Felicity," I said. "My dad liked it. There was an English movie star called Felicity. At school, everyone thought it was very funny, so I became Flick." "Flick Lane," he said. "Yeah, good, don't you think?" I said. "Yeah, Scott and Flick," he laughed. "Denver's crime fighters." "Hey, don't you mean Flick and Scott?" I laughed. "Scott and Flick, Flick and Scott." Now I looked at the road. I tried to think about the drive. The road was at 7,000 feet already. But it was a beautiful day in the Rockies. Really beautiful. The sky was clear blue and you could see for miles. But I couldn't stop thinking about Scott. I thought about the day he died in November, just 2 months ago. The day we went looking for Eddie Lang, one of Denver's worst criminals. He killed people for money. But we were onto him. We knew where he was. We were in an old, dark house. We knew that Eddie Lang and his men were there. "Don't worry, Scott. I'm behind you," I said quietly. I could see Scott in front of me. It was dark, but I could just see him. Suddenly, I heard a loud noise, a gun. Then Scott was down on the dirty floor. His blood was everywhere. I ran outside quickly and called the police station. A few minutes later, more police officers arrived. But Scott was dead. Scott was dead, and Eddie Lang and his men were gone. They were gone. But I thought about Scott every day. I went on driving. An hour later, I drove into the parking lot of Pinecrest Police Station. Something told me that Bill Gershon, Chief of Pinecrest Police wasn't happy to see me. "So," he said as I walked into his office, "Leo sent me a woman." "Yeah, aren't you lucky?" I said, smiling. Gershon didn't smile. I sat down. There were still men in the police who thought that women police officers and murder didn't go together. It looked like Gershon was one of those men. "We don't often have murders in Pinecrest," he said. I looked at Gershon. He was a round person, round body, round face, round glasses. About 50, 55 maybe, with almost no hair. Then I looked around at his office. Yeah, I thought. Parking tickets. Not murder. "Listen," I said. "Why don't we make this easy? Just tell me what I need to know." The chief of police said nothing for a moment or two, and then went on. Janine Anderson was her name, a student from Austin, Texas. She wanted to write for a newspaper, to be a journalist. This is about her. He pushed some papers towards me. I looked at the papers. There wasn't much. Her name, her parents' names, a student of journalism at the University of Texas, Austin. Cause of death, drowning. Her parents were in Europe on vacation. Gershon shook his head sadly and said, "They're coming back today. Coffee?" It wasn't much, but it was a start. "Who found her?" I asked, drinking the hot black coffee. "Her friend, Teresa Douglas," said Gershon. "They were staying at the Mountain Hotel." The Mountain Hotel was in Pinecrest. A lot of skiers stayed there. "They skied all day," Gershon went on. "Janine went to the swimming pool at about 9 o'clock. The pool is on the top floor of the hotel. She had to go upstairs and go outside. At 11 o'clock, the Douglas girl went up to look for Janine. She found her in the swimming pool." "Dead?" I asked. "Yes," said Gershon. "Teresa Douglas tried mouth to mouth. Then we had a 911 call at about 11:15. We were there 5 minutes later. Janine was dead." "Did Janine have other friends here?" I asked. "Yes. Apart from the Douglas girl, there's a guy, Jeff Mason," said the chief of police. "They're students in Austin." "Anything on the body?" I asked. I wanted to know if there was a fight before Janine died. "On the back of her neck," said Gershon. "It looks like maybe somebody just put her head under the water and drowned her." "Well, we don't know that yet," I said. "This is terrible," said Gershon. "Governor Johnson is visiting Pinecrest soon. A murder is the last thing we need." Clark Johnson was the governor of Colorado, and everyone said he was the next president of the United States. He lived near Pinecrest. I looked at Gershon. He wasn't thinking about the dead girl. He was thinking about the bad news, I thought. I finished my coffee and stood up. "Okay, I'm going," I said. "Here's my cell phone number." I wrote down my number and gave it to Gershon. "I'm staying at the Pine Lodge Hotel." Gershon came to the door with me. He still didn't smile. "Listen," I said. "Maybe you don't like it, but we have to work together. If this is murder, we have to find this killer before he or she kills again." I looked at Gershon and walked away. Great, I thought. Just what I need. A chief of police who doesn't want to work with me. I went back to my car, took out my winter coat, and put it on. It was cold here, much colder than Denver. We were at 9,000 feet, but it was a beautiful, clear day, and there was a smell of wood smoke in the air. I walked down the road to the Mountain Hotel. I looked at the town. It was a pretty place. Behind the small houses were the big houses of the famous people who lived in Pinecrest. Lots of movie stars and famous sports people had homes there. Sometimes you saw them on the ski runs, in the stores, or in the more expensive restaurants in the town. I looked up to the snow-covered mountains. I could see ski runs everywhere, but there were only a few people moving down the mountain. It was a beautiful day for skiing, cold and clear. But no one wanted to ski. They thought that there was a killer free in the town. Chapter 3. The Mountain Hotel. Then I saw the Mountain Hotel. I walked into the hotel and looked over to the bar. There was a fire. It was warm and comfortable. It looked nice, I thought. Janine Anderson's friends, Teresa Douglas and Jeff Mason, were in room 203. They were about 22, 23 years old. They looked young, lost. "It's terrible," said Teresa. Her face was wet. She cried softly. Jeff sat down next to her on the bed and put his hand on her shoulder. I looked around at the room. It was Jeff's room. From the window, you could see a very high mountain, the one they called Snow Peak. There were clothes everywhere, ski boots under the window. "We can't believe she's dead, ma'am. It's terrible," said Jeff. When he spoke, I could hear that he came from Texas. He was a tall, blond young man, good-looking. "I understand," I said. "I'll try to be quick, but I have to ask some questions." "Sure," said Jeff. "It was 11 o'clock, Teresa said, when I went to look for Janine." Teresa looked up at me. She had dark hair and very white skin. "You slept in the same room, you and Janine?" I asked. "Yes," she answered. "Me and Janine in one room, room 309, and Jeff in this room." I looked at the girl. I gave her time to tell her story. Janine went to the swimming pool at about 9 o'clock. I fell asleep at about 10:30. I was very tired. We skied the whole day. But I woke up just before 11 o'clock and saw that Janine wasn't there. In her bed, I mean. So I got dressed and went up to the top floor. It was really cold outside. I saw her in the swimming pool, just on top of the water. The girl put her head in her hands. "I can't stop thinking about it," she said. She was quiet for a moment. "I jumped into the pool," she went on. "I tried to pull her out of the water, but she was too heavy. I turned her over and put my mouth to hers, but it was no good. I knew it was no good." Teresa put her head in her hands again and cried. "And there was no one else around?" I asked after a few minutes. "I couldn't see anyone," she said. "I shouted out and a hotel worker heard me. He called the police." "And was Janine a good swimmer?" I asked. "Oh, yes, ma'am," said Jeff. "She was a great swimmer. I'm sure that Janine didn't drown by herself." "And how long have you been here?" I asked. "Almost 10 days," said Jeff. "We have to leave tomorrow. Classes start next week." "And do you want to write for a newspaper like Janine?" I asked. "Yes, I do. I study journalism," said Jeff. His face went white. "Janine wanted so much to be a writer," he said. "It was the thing she wanted most in the world, and she was really good." "We know each other from the ski club," said Teresa. "We all loved skiing." "Is this your first time here in Pinecrest?" I asked. Yes, it is for us," said Jeff. "But Janine knew it. She came here every year. To ski, I mean. She was the one. She said it was a lovely place. And it's true. We were having a good time here." "Did Janine know anyone here in Pinecrest?" I asked. "I mean, did she see anyone while she was here? A friend? Anyone?" Teresa shook her head. "I don't know," she said. I don't think so. Just us, I think. But she sometimes went off on her own, alone? I asked. Like the night she died? Yes. Janine always went to the pool alone in the evenings, said Teresa. But she didn't talk about anyone. I don't think she knew anyone here. I think she just thought or wrote in her notebook and went swimming. Notebook? I asked. Yes, Janine wrote in her notebook every day, said Teresa. She wrote about her day, about her thoughts, her feelings, I think, about things that happened to her, things she saw. Like Jeff said, she wanted to be a writer. She liked to write. And where's her notebook now? I asked. Well, said Teresa, in our room, I think. She always kept it next to her bed. She liked to write when she woke up in the morning. You know, her dreams and things. Do you think it could be... Shall I get it? We can all go, I said. We all went upstairs to room 309. It was the same as Jeff's room, but with 2 beds. Teresa looked for the notebook. I can't find it, she said. It isn't here. It must be somewhere, said Jeff. Shall we help you look? Well, okay, said Teresa. But it isn't here. Really, it isn't. She always kept it next to her bed. We looked everywhere in the room. But Teresa was right. Janine's notebook was gone. Perhaps she took it with her to the swimming pool last night? I left the dead girl's friends with some questions in my head. Where was Janine Anderson's notebook? Did Janine Anderson's killer take it? And if so, why? Chapter 4. A Talk with Jeff. I went upstairs to the swimming pool where Janine died. From there you could see everything, the town and the mountains. 2 of Gershon's men were there. Were you here last night? I asked the men. I was, Detective Lane, said one of them, a tall, big guy. The name's Williams, Sergeant Bob Williams. And did you find anything? I asked. Just a pen, said Williams. A pen? I said. Yes, he said. I found a pen just here by the side of the pool. They're looking at it, to see if it was the girl's. It looked like Janine Anderson really was writing in her notebook last night, I thought. The pen was there, but where was the notebook? Okay, and one more thing, I said. Can you get to the swimming pool without going through the hotel reception? Yes, said Williams. You can go through the parking lot and the place they keep the skis, then into the elevator. And the elevator brings you here? I asked. That's right, he said. No security cameras? I asked. No, Williams said. I talked to the hotel manager and he told me they never had any problems. Until now, I thought as I left the mountain hotel. I went outside into the street. On a wall, there was an advertisement. Governor to run for White House, it said. There was a picture of Clark Johnson, the governor of Colorado. The elections for president were later in the year. I looked back up to the top floor of the mountain hotel. I couldn't see the pool or Williams from here, but maybe from higher up. I looked across the street and saw a restaurant called the Columbine. You could sit outside at the top and I could see people at the little tables. I went in and walked up the stairs. I showed the young waiter my police badge. I looked over to the mountain hotel. I could see Sergeant Williams next to the pool. What if the killer could see Janine Anderson from here? He could sit here in the restaurant and wait, then just walk into the hotel. Last night, I said to the waiter, did you see anything, anyone strange? Strange? The young man thought for a moment. He said. Well, there was one man. He's come here every night for the past 10 days. A slim guy, about 35, always alone. Sits here for hours sometimes. And last night? I asked. Last night, the waiter answered. I thought it was strange because the man asked for coffee, but he left before the coffee came. He left without paying? I asked. No, said the waiter. He paid. He left some money on the table and just ran out. What time did he leave? I asked. Oh, I can't remember, I'm sorry, said the waiter. We were busy last night, but we close at 10. What time do the waiters leave? I asked. Oh, usually about 10:30, he said. So maybe the man just walked across the street, through the parking lot and into the hotel to kill Janine Anderson? And no one could see him from the Columbine because it was closed. Was the man at the Columbine Janine Anderson's killer? I left the Columbine and walked back to the police station. I told Gershon about the man at the Columbine. Get Sergeant Williams onto it, I said. We need to find that man. I got in my car and drove to my hotel. The Pine Lodge Hotel was just half a mile away from the Mountain Hotel. I usually stayed at the Pine Lodge when I came to Pine Crest for a skiing weekend. It was a friendly place with nice, comfortable rooms. From the window of my room, I looked out over the mountains. Then I opened my small suitcase, lay on my bed, and thought about what I knew. It was easy for the killer, I thought. Easy to watch Janine from the terrace of the Columbine. Easy to get to the swimming pool. But why? I turned to the phone on the little table by the side of the bed. I called Leo and told him what I knew so far. Leo listened. Then he asked, "How's Bill Gershon?" "He's surprised I'm a woman," I said. "You didn't tell him." Leo laughed. I laughed too. We talked a little, and then Leo said, "Flick, I have something to tell you." "Yes?" I said. "We found out something today about Eddie Lang and Scott's murder," said Leo. I sat up quickly and shouted, "Eddie Lang! You mean you know we can get him?" "Wait," said Leo. "Not exactly, but I think we're very near." "I'm coming back," I said. "I need to be there." "No," said Leo. "You stay right where you are. We'll get Eddie Lang. You get Janine Anderson's killer." I felt weak. I said goodbye to Leo, put the phone down and lay down again. It was only 3 o'clock in the afternoon, but I felt tired and closed my eyes. Before I knew it, I was asleep. I dreamed about Scott, like I often did. I dreamed about his blood on the floor. Then a noise woke me. It was the phone. "Hello?" I said. My voice was heavy with sleep. "Detective Lane?" "Yes, who is it?" I asked. "It's Jeff Mason, Janine's friend," said the young man. "I have to talk to you." "Okay, Jeff, sure," I said. "Come over." I got up and took a shower. I tried to wake up, tried to forget Scott's blood on the floor, the redness of it. I let the water fall over my body. It was warm and it felt good. Scott was dead, but the water felt good. 10 minutes later, Jeff arrived. I went down to reception to see him. We sat by the fire. "What is it?" I asked. The young man looked at me. "Well, maybe it's nothing, but—" He started. I could see that he really wanted to talk. "Well," I said, "it's best to tell me if you think it's important." "It's about the notebook," he said. "The notebook?" I asked. "Do you have it?" "No," he said. "No, It's just that, well, you know that Janine was studying to be a journalist? Yes, like you, I said. Well, I was thinking, Jeff said. What is it? I asked. The thing is, he said, every year at our university we have a competition. I don't understand, I said. It's a competition for students of journalism, he told me, in February. It's for the best story. You know, something new, something that no one knows about. And? I asked. So the winner, the one who writes the best story, gets a big prize, he said. And Janine really wanted to win. And she was good, I said. The best. Jeff smiled. And she was working on something really big, I'm sure. How do you know? I asked. Well, I just know she was, he said. She was always writing in her notebook. I could see she was. It was something big. And I'm sure it was something about Pine Crest. Why do you think that? About Pine Crest, I mean, I asked. Well, you know she came here every year? Yes, I said. I watched her, said Jeff. Well, you know, we were friends, and she went to the library at least 2 afternoons in the last 10 days, after skiing. For books. She was trying to put the story together. I'm sure of it. I thought about what he said. But she didn't show it to you? I asked. Or talk to you about it? Jeff smiled. No, he said. I'm in the competition too. I don't know if it means anything. That the notebook is gone. Well, I smiled at him. It's something. I looked out of the window. The mountains were soft and quiet. Why didn't you say something before? I asked him. I didn't think. I didn't think it could have anything to do with it, said the young man. But maybe it does. And now the notebook's gone. It was quiet for a moment. Then Jeff spoke. You know, Detective Lane, he said, looking at me, it's really terrible to lose someone close to you. I can't tell you how I feel. I feel terrible. Yes, I said. I know. I looked at Jeff. He looked so young and so sad. I don't know why, but I wanted to tell him about Scott. Perhaps it was because my dream was so close to me. Perhaps it was because Jeff had kind blue eyes. Perhaps it was because Jeff's friend was dead too. I told him the story about Scott. We never caught him, I said. Eddie Lang, I mean. I never caught him. I knew it was him. I knew he killed Scott. But you didn't have anything. You couldn't show that it was him, said Jeff. I understand. Yes, it's difficult. Yeah, I said, standing up. Most days it's difficult, and some days are more difficult than others. So? Jeff asked. So how do I live? I asked the question for him. Well, some days I think, why wasn't I there in front? Why didn't I die? Then some days I think, why didn't I stop Lang, stop him from shooting Scott? Jeff looked at me. But most days, I said, I think we're going to get Eddie Lang. One day, Eddie Lang will be in prison for a very long time.